Hey there. Good day, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Cyreta Laws-Frumau. I am a performance and mindset coach with the Proctor Gallagher Institute. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time seeing me, welcome. I am going through the book for the month of July, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So this is a 1937 classic. And this book has sold over 15 million copies. Napoleon in this book interviewed 500 persons, men and women, who were able to influence their lives and the lives of those around them using 13 success principles. We're on the final chapter, and we've had quite some interesting takeaways from this book. The most important thing, of course, is to take action, because you can receive information and it doesn't go further than in your conscious mind. So you don't really internalize it. You don't put it very much in the subconscious mind. And so it doesn't emotionally connect and it doesn't change anything. So you really want to internalize this information. You want to take action and you want to ensure that it's deeply rooted in the subconscious mind. Now, like I said, we are on chapter 15, and chapter 15 is how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. We have already spoken about 5 of these ghosts, and we're now on the 6th, and the 6th one is the fear of death. We're going to talk about the fear of death today. We're also going to talk about worry. What is worry? How does it influence the mind? And then we're gonna introduce a 7th basic evil. So we did say there were 6 basic fears, but there is one that is more often fatal than all the other 6 fears combined. Well, at least often fatal than all of the 6 fears that we have discussed or will be discussing in final today. I am on page 50 of my book. That's where the fear of death starts. And so let's begin. And remember, as we're going through this, it's so important for us to be aware of how these fears have influenced our minds. We mentioned before Napoleon saying that these fears are so deeply rooted that we are not even aware that they're there. So honest self-reflection is needed. And I remember in the beginning of this chapter, he said, normally when you ask persons what are they afraid of, most persons say nothing and no one. And I could really identify with this, because I also thought that I was somehow invincible. Until, awareness, you know that you're not doing the thing that you want, but somehow you convince yourself that it's okay to not go after anything. And so you talk yourself out of it because you're afraid. And you don't know that you're afraid because you make up excuses and alibis about, oh, maybe it's not worth it. Yeah, why do I need to struggle to go through that? We've all been there. So very important, this chapter, to really open the mind, see what might be deeply rooted, and to take action towards the thing that we want. So the fear of death. Do you fear dying? Napoleon says here, for hundreds of millions of years, man has been asking the still unanswered question, where did I come from and where am I going? Now, no one knows for sure exactly the answers to these questions. Persons have shared their own experiences. You see videos, well, I've seen videos quite often on YouTube talking about going to heaven, going to hell, meeting Buddha, meeting Christ. And then I've seen other videos that says that, these persons never really existed. They are just an allegory. They're just there to teach us more about our consciousness. What we do know, or what seems to be real, is that we are having some kind of experience here. And if we're going to be fearful about anything, including dying, then we're not really living, or we're not really experiencing life, because we shy away from doing most things. One of the thing, or one of the, what really causes this fear, the fear of death, is this idea that, if you don't live a certain way, you're going to burn in eternal damnation. So there's like this eternal punishment. And that makes a lot of persons afraid. So that's just so cruel, for the churches that talk about these things, for the Bible, that brings up this point. Personally, I prefer just not to think about it that way. Napoleon says that this fear causes us to lose our reason, and it can also destroy interest in life and make happiness impossible. Very sad. He said, during my research, I reviewed a book entitled A Catalog of the Gods, in which were listed 30,000 gods, which man has worshipped. So think about that. Man has worshipped from the beginning of time 30,000 gods, from a crayfish to a man. It's little wonder that men have become so frightened at the approach of death, because it seizes the imagination in such a realistic way that it actually paralyzes reason. And so this fear becomes perpetuated. In truth, on page 351, he says in the third paragraph, in truth, no man knows, and no man has ever known, what heaven or hell is like, nor does any man know if either place actually exists. And that is true, because before we can say that we have a dream about going to heaven, we first have to have that thought. And we know that we have the imagination. So who is to tell that these persons that actually had these experiences, it wasn't a part of their imagination? Who is to tell that the pastor that or the spiritual leader who shares his belief is not only coming from his imagination? We don't really know. The beautiful thing is that we all have an imagination, so we all can use our imagination to believe whatever we want to believe. It all comes from belief. So, and we can choose. Man has that ability to choose what he believes and how and when to take control of his mind. It's his mind. So the fears of the Dark Ages also really gripped the minds of men and destroyed their reason. But the good thing is that this has been dispelled with science and through the aid of biology, astronomy, geology, and other related sciences. So persons have gone mad thinking about these things and thinking about that. On page 352, Napoleon says, this fear is useless. Death will come. We know that for sure. We know that all of this is temporary. We know that this body that we're living in is temporary. We know that the things that we have, the material things that we have, is temporary. They will all go. So whether it's 100 years from now, 200 years from now, over however old you might live to be, you will lose all of it. This body that I'm living in will go. The things that I have, my house, this plant behind me will go. We see it in nature as well, that it changes. So we know that it will come. So, but why focus on it coming? Because when we do that, we lose the enjoyment of the process. We lose the journey. And that is important, to enjoy the journey. Because if we're going to focus on the end like that and focus on that, then might as well just end it right now. Doesn't make any sense. If you decide that you want to live and you decide that you're going to experience this life, this world, focus on that. And that's what Napoleon is saying here. Just accept it as a necessity and let it just pass from your mind. You know, we learned that that neither matter or energy, so these are the two realities that are known to us, matter and energy, can be created nor destroyed. So both matter and energy can be transformed, but neither can be destroyed. And we spoke quite a bit about that also in sex transmutation. So it cannot be, matter or energy cannot be transferred and it cannot be destroyed. And even this physical body that I'm in, when it loses its form, it will just become something else. And my spirit is energy, and that is eternal. That's the eternal part. So life then cannot be destroyed. If we look at it that way, it's just in another form. And death is just a mere transition. Do you believe that? Okay, the symptoms of the fear of death. It's a habit of thinking about dying instead of making the most out of life. That's what we've been talking about. And this is generally due to a lack of purpose or a lack of suitable occupation. So if you have this fear, it's because your purpose has not been, you haven't acknowledged your purpose. You don't know what your purpose is. You might need help in discovering what your purpose is. The greatest of all remedies for the fear of death is a burning desire for achievement, backed by useful service to others. A busy person, someone who is busy, someone who is not thinking, who has a purpose and a burning desire, doesn't have time to think about dying. They're thinking about how they can improve, change the world, make the world a better place, improve the lives of others. And that's beautiful. The commonest cause of the fear of death are ill health, poverty, lack of appropriate occupation, disappointment over love, insanity, and religious fanaticism. Okay, so that's the fear of death. We're now going to talk about worry, old man worry. Now, worry is a state of mind, and this state of mind is based on fear. Worry is very slow. So it works upon your mind slowly, but it's persistent. And it's so persistent that it's like it's seeping into your subconscious step by step until it paralyzes your reason, it destroys your self-confidence and initiative without you even realizing. Worry, Napoleon says on page 353, is a form of sustained fear caused by indecision. Therefore, it is a state of mind which can be controlled. As with all state of minds, we can control it. An unsettled mind is helpless. Indecision makes an unsettled mind. So important to make a decision. So important for us to learn the art of decision making, because indecision causes our mind to be unsettled. And we know that indecision translates or move itself from into doubt and then into fear and cripples us. We do not need to worry over conditions once we have reached a decision to follow a definite line of action. So once we reach that decision to follow this line of action, what will happen is that the people, the circumstances, and the things will manifest themselves, will come to you. If you think about anything that you've achieved in your life, you will realize that what I'm saying is true. And how do I know this? Because it has happened to me countless and countless of times, more times than I can count. When I don't worry about something, when I make a decision that I'm going to go after something, magic happens. That's how I describe it. Magic happens. God steps in and creates beautiful circumstances and people that show themselves in my lives that have helped me along the way, that just made things much smoother. So there was no struggle, no worry. Initially, of course, when you're going through it, you don't know what's happening in the background. You look at the physical and you think, that's it, nothing is happening. But that's actually not true. Things are happening, but you can't see them in the physical. They're in another form, they're in energy, but they're coming to you. So it doesn't make any sense to worry. And it's good if we can understand this from a very, very early age so that we can master the other fears as well. A man whose mind is filled with fear not only destroys his own chances, but he also transmits these destructive vibrations to the mind of all who come in contact with him, and he destroys their own chances as well. This was so deep that I highlighted it in my book. So if you surround yourself with people who are so fearful, not only are they influencing their lives and destroying their chances to take action, but they're also destroying yours as well. Birds of a feather flock together. That's what the saying, that's how the saying goes. The vibration of fear does pass from one to the other just as quickly and as surely as the sound of the human voice passes from the broadcasting station to the receiving set of a radio and by the self-same medium. Mental telepathy is a reality. So that's 355. So, you listening to these videos is gonna transfer to you encouragement, it's going to transfer to you motivation, it's going to help to release some of the fears that you're having. It's going to bring an awareness, because you want to really focus on things that will grow you, not on things that are destructive and that will break down the faculty of the creative imagination. Because when you break that down and when your mind is worrying and in a destructive mode, what's going to happen is that you're going to repel the people who can help you. You're going to repel the circumstances that can move you forward and the situation. You're going to repel, you're not going to attract. And this is also what the law of attraction speaks about. So there is the other side, right? If your thoughts are not in a constructive way, if you're worrying, which is very destructive, that is going to repel. It's not going to attract, because they're two different sides. You can either attract or you can repel. And Napoleon says on page 356 that the thought impulses, they embed themselves in the subconscious mind of the person, releasing them, and they become a part of his character. So your thoughts do manifest themselves into your character. Because when you can see the character of a man, you basically know what he's thinking. Because actually they say actions speak louder than words. And a person's actions, they're coming from what he's thinking, because it has to be first a thought for it to manifest itself in the physical. We know this. To be successful, you must find peace of mind, acquire the material needs of life, and above all, attain happiness. All these evidence of success begin in the form of thought impulses. So I do wish you success. I wish that you find peace of mind. I wish that you will, above all, have happiness. And as you apply these principles, and you bring awareness to what is happening in your own world, you are the master of your own earthly destiny, just as surely as you have the power to control your own thoughts. Isn't that beautiful? That's on page 357. He says, you are the master of your own earthly destiny, just as surely as you have the power to control your own thoughts. You can control your thoughts. You can be in control. You can give your control away to the things that are there, to other people, their own thoughts and their own vibration. Or you can take the control for yourself and decide what you want and how you're going to live your life. So that's our second point. And the last point that I want to discuss today is the devil's workshop. This is the seventh basic evil. So we did mention, I mean, the name of the chapter is How to Outwit the Six Ghosts of Fear. But here's a seventh basic evil. And this is so subtle. This evil is so subtle. You hear how I'm saying it? It's just to bring your awareness to it. Maybe a little bit dramatic with it, but it's really, we're talking about your life here. We're talking about your abundance, your growth. We're talking about you living a full life. And these are the things that can stop you, that can stop us from achieving. So here's this seventh basic evil that is so subtle that it's more fatal than all the other six fears that we have discussed. We have discussed, so let me say them in order. I'm just going back to the first page. The fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of the loss of love of someone, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. So even more destructive, even more fatal is the seventh one. And Napoleon calls this evil susceptibility to negative influences. So being susceptible to other person's influences. What does that mean? It means that you are likely to be influenced by others. And I think right away we can think how this can affect us, because if you're easily influenced by others, you're not going to use your own mind. You are going to allow others to do your thinking for you. You're going to allow yourself to be surrounded by the vibration and the energy that is not in alignment with the thing that you want. This is really important. Again, he encourages us to examine yourself very carefully to determine if you are susceptible to negative influences. If you neglect this self-analysis, you will forfeit your right to attain the object of your desires. He has also prepared a list of questions. We're not going to go into the questions, but just to talk briefly around this evil. He says this evil is also dangerous because it strikes in as many different forms as there are human experiences. Sometimes it enters the mind through well-meant words of one's own relatives. At other times, it bores from within through one's own mental attitude. Always, it is as deadly as poison, even though it may not kill as quickly. So you see why he says it's subtle, because it's just the relative that says something to you that you brush off, you think it's not important, but it's something that they repeat often enough that it seeps into your subconscious mind. How to protect yourself from the negative influences, your willpower. You have to understand that you have your own mind, that you can control your own mind. This understanding will help. This is the first point of it. You also have to recognize the fact that every other human being are by nature lazy, they're indifferent, and that they're susceptible to all the suggestions which harmonize with your weakness. So persons are, even if you're going after something, and if someone is also lazy and you mention something, It's easy for them to be in harmony with that because they're vibrating at a low level anyway. And this is also from what I've experienced as a coach, why it's so important. So to have a coach and have the right persons around you, because when you have persons that will kind of put up with your, apologize for the word, BS, it's also because by nature they're lazy, they're indifferent, they're okay with, accepting weaknesses, and not that we don't have weaknesses, but they create their own alibis and excuses around why they can't do something, have something, or be something. So you have to set up habits for the purpose of countering these fears. You have to set up the right habits that will counter your fears. First, you have to recognize the fears are there, and then you have to set up habits. So that's when you take action, right? You solution. On page 359, there are some self-analysis test questions, which will help you to see, what your daily habits are, what you might be allowing to take control of you, and how you can then create a solution for them. So these test questions start on page 359 and they go all the way until 364. So Napoleon is really helping us here with these questions. And he also reminds us that, your mind is your spiritual estate. You have to protect it. You have to protect it like it's divine royalty. If you don't protect it, then you will leave yourself open to the playthings and the other people around you that might be lazy, might be indifferent, might offer you an excuse, a way out. And so you never take action and you decide to keep putting things off. On page 357, and which is where we're going to wrap up today, he talks about the 57 alibis. These are famous alibis, and they know all the reasons for failure. And these are really good. These are really good alibis. They're airtight. Yeah, they will explain away your own lack of achievement. So you can't do something. Is that it? You're right, because it depends on what your belief is. So as you go through this list, examine yourself carefully and determine how many of these alibis are your own property. Remember too, the philosophy presented in this book makes every one of these alibis obsolete. So there's really no excuse. Okay, let me read out a few of the alibis before I close this video. If I had money, if I had a good education, if I could get that job, if I had time, if times were better, if I could just get a break, if I hadn't failed, if only I knew, if I were only younger. We know from all the examples in this book that all these alibis are BS. They have no merit. So what are you going to do about it? Finally, I want to read, as I end this video, the last two paragraphs, very short paragraphs on page 371. Napoleon says, the master key is intangible, but it's powerful. This is the master key that will unlock the door of life, bountiful riches. It is the privilege of creating in your own mind a burning desire for a definite form of riches. There is no penalty for the use of the key, but there is a price you must pay. If you do not use it, the price is failure. There is a reward for stupendous proportions if you put the key to use. It is the satisfaction that comes to all who conquer self and force life to pay whatever is asked. The reward is worthy of your effort. Will you make the start and be convinced? If we are related, said the immortal Emerson, we shall meet. In closing, may I borrow his thought and say, if we are related, we have, through these pages, met. So beautiful. I am so happy that you were able to join me on the journey through this book. It really is a classic. In my next video, so tomorrow on Friday, I will be doing a live webinar in the morning, and I encourage you to join me because I will be presenting you some information from Bob as he guides you through how you can apply everything that we have discussed in a video. So that would be a live masterclass, and I will be with you tomorrow, Friday, as we go through that masterclass together. It's a one-day masterclass. Until then, take care of yourselves. Be good, be aware, be vigilant, but most importantly, take action towards your burning desire.